Welcome, everybody, to the Mansfield Bus. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mansfield Bus. Today, I'm running solo because Hurdy's got the flu, and then Susan also has the flu. So we have both my co-host or my host and or guest out for the count. So I figured I'd just hop in here and fill in the space because, well, show's going. We go live at 2 p.m. every Thursday. Today, no exception. And, well, I get to run this and get to try to use all the fancy tools that Hurdy uses here on the sidebar. We usually will split them, but this time it's all me. So what I thought I'd do today is, well, first of all, tell you about the Mansfield Bus. We do, as I mentioned, live shows, and we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube at YouTube/MansfieldTXBuzz. Please like and subscribe. It'll help the show get bigger reach and do all the fancy things that YouTube lets you do. So I am your host, Jordan Hough. As I said, Hurdy is not here today because he's down. And, well, when you go live every Thursday, it's bound to happen. Somebody's going to get sick. Somebody's going to have an appointment. Something might happen. But the beauty of having two hosts is, we can always take over. So if you want to come onto the show, shoot Hurdy over a message, hurdy@hurdybird.com. Just let him know you want to be in the show, and he'll book you right in here. We cover everything that is the Mansfield, Arlington, and surrounding areas. We give small businesses a platform for them to give their pitch, more than 30 seconds, give them the space to be able to tell their story, where they came from, what talked them into going into business, what do they offer, and what's been going on. Really try to give you a insight into what they do. So now I'm going to give a call to our sponsors, Liberty Tax Defenders. They are who you call if you have issues with the IRS. They will help you solve problems, and I believe now they've solved about $1.2 million worth of IRS issues. So they know what they're doing. Wade and Brad are both CPAs and really have the expertise. Brad actually has been he's worked for the IRS and actually has written code for the IRS. So he really knows how to help you navigate all of those. And between him and Wade's expertise in the corporate tax world, they are both really just a powerhouse to have on your side. They are also incredibly funny. So I want to show you yet another one of their awesome content that they do, because they have a lot of really good insight for you. So here's one of them.
I just found out I got a nasty letter in the mail saying I'm under audit. What do I do?
You don't have to agree with what they find. Have we seen that they can make mistakes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think $1.2 million that we've saved our clients can show that they're not always right. So many people go at it alone. They just want to get it over with. They'll submit to an interview. They'll submit to letting the IRS come out. And that's the worst thing you can possibly do. You need to get somebody that can defend you, prevent you from talking to the IRS, prevent them from camping out at your place of business. They are taking the most extreme position. They are protecting the government's interests, not yours. Verify that that's correct. And then you have appellate rights. You don't have to just agree to their finding. You can appeal it. The appeals division of the IRS is an option for remediation that's available to taxpayers. It is quasi-independent. So you don't have such hardcore believers in the IRS mission working with appeals. They're reasonable. They always consider the hazards of litigation, and they're willing to negotiate, willing to knock off penalties oftentimes, willing to accept, this position is extreme. So when you're under audit, get help. Don't go at it alone.
Some great tips there. Nothing like having an expert backing you up and helping you make the right choices and getting you out of trouble, especially if it's even something that you don't have to do. which is really, really important. So I guess now, I mean, we typically jump into icebreakers, but it's me. So, maybe we can come up with some. Okay, so now I get those myself icebreakers. So, what to talk about? Well, I guess I should talk about some of the things maybe you can see here on my office, right? As you can tell, I love cars. I drive a Ford Mustang, a 5.0. It's a stick shift. I love it. It's fast, it's loud, and is awesome, but it uses a lot of gas. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat that one. But I've always loved cars. Stick shifts in particular is just fun to be able to drive a vehicle and get to just interact with it in a more personal way. Just getting to work the gears, working the 3 pedals. Seems like a lot of work when you're first learning how to do it, but then it becomes so second nature. And it's just, you can control the vehicle to such a more intimate way. And especially when you got a close to 500 horsepower engine tied to that car, those gears really kick in place. So that really is why I drive that car, and I love it. I couldn't recommend it more. Except if you do long drives and you want something gas efficient, then that's probably not the right one. But hey, it's Texas. Gas is it's practically free here, so not a bad deal in here. What else? Legos. I love Legos. Actually, my son got me into them. It's just remarkable. Actually, this little guy right here is a classic Corvette, but it's actually made all out of Legos, which is crazy to me how you start putting stuff like this together. It starts with little flat surfaces, little blocks, and you can put it together assemble incredible creations with such simple blocks. Which I guess it leads me to the topic of the show, which I want to talk about social media and storytelling. Because this is what I do for my business. Is something I've been doing for many years. And it is very similar to Legos in the regard that you have all these little pieces that when assembled together can create awesome creations that can be highly entertaining, beautiful, and be funny. You can create such compelling stories. But they're all, if you think about it, in the social media space, everything's composed of just smaller blocks, which are stories, images, sound, your voice, the written word. Like they're all these small components, but put together can tell phenomenal stories. So I will, I guess, start with how I got into this space, social media. It was, I'm old enough to have been around, but I mean, I come in this really interesting generation where, like, when I was a kid, I mean, the internet was not even a thing, right? So I grew up without phones, internet, like we had landlines, and if you called somebody and they weren't home, that was it. Maybe they had an answering machine. Those were fun. Leave a funny message for them to listen when they got home, but you really couldn't just have immediate access to everybody. And television was one of the main marketing channels back then that leveraged video. Very powerful communication medium, but you were locked into it, and it's funny because my son is 7 and I have to explain to him just how television worked back in the day. And to him, it's just so bizarre that you can only watch one episode and it came once a week. And if you were home to watch it, you watched it. And if you didn't, I mean, there weren't reruns. You couldn't record this stuff, right? Like later on, TiVo came around and you start getting on-demand shows, even DVDs. But back then it was VHSs. And if you were savvy enough to program a VHS recorder to record the show when it happened, but I mean, most of us didn't know how to do that, nor have the proper equipment for it. So if you missed it, that was it. But on the flip side, when we were watching a show, you were, into your show, and then a few minutes into it, you go into a commercial break. You have this pause where you begin to play commercials. And you couldn't skip them. You couldn't fast forward them. You couldn't swipe them away. Like it was just there. So you either got up to the bathroom or you just watched them. Now, back then, commercials used to be funny. They were entertaining. They were, it wasn't such a disruptive medium because they took the effort to do something that was entertaining and informed you, but also gave you a little more. So that was where I mean, I remember a lot of really funny commercials that would happen. I know in Mexico, by the way, I am from Mexico, born and raised there. So I I may have some early childhood commercials that are a little different here. But I remember there was one where they were advertising super glue, and there was super glue this guy everywhere, like super glue him to a beam and just moving around places with a hard hat. It was pretty great. There were some really funny ones that would come. I can't really think of one on right top of my head. Actually, no, I remember they had one later on, a Jack in the Box one where they had mini sirloin burgers, and they created a bunch of tiny cowboys that went on, and they wrangled miniature beef cow, and they were called miniature sirloin burgers, and it had a whole jingle. I mean, it was just hilarious, right? So that was entertainment, right? So I come now to starting into the advertising space, and now I'm working for McDonald's, which was a phenomenal client. This is back in the day when McDonald's used to spend $800 million a year on advertising. And this was like around 2000. This was in the 2010s. So this was a lot of money. And that's my dogs. This is a live show. No, don't bark. So they had crazy deep pockets. So at that time, I was in charge of a ad program. Just a second. This is a live show. No. Come here. That's it. I have to kick out my dogs on a live show. That's awesome. So talking about working at McDonald's, that project was $5.5 million, and that was only creative production. No. Sorry about that. So we were producing podcast. I'm so distracted. Let me see. That's it. Again, live show. So where did I leave off? It's, we're in the 2010s. I'm working for McDonald's. They put a massive amount of money on these TV spots, right? They run nationally, and they give you a lot of reach because you basically have a captive audience. And that is something that we just don't really have anymore. And a lot of people have had trouble transitioning for that. We're doing these spots, we're creating really funny stories because laughter and comedy is a great way to attract people's attention. It's a good way to give value and give a positive feeling associated with your brand. And we were creating all these TV spots tied into the different offerings. So it was like the Mac Rib, a really bizarre food. I don't even know what it is. Mac Cafe, the value menu, Big Mac, kids menu, all these different things that McDonald's, sells. And it was about creating those, what were they called? Me stories that you could put yourself in. It was for me, it was great training on telling good stories and coming up with things that could give a positive attribution to your brand and also work on the brand awareness. But around that time, social media started coming out, and it was very interesting to me from an early stage how it fundamentally changed the way people interact with your message, right? So with social media, it first started, for me, it was in high school. We started first with it was MySpace, and then Facebook came around and sort of took over. But it was very much regarded for the kids. Right. I actually had a boss of mine at the time when I was there. We had a project come in for McDonald's. This is right when Twitter came out. Like, there's this Twitter thing that we want to test out. And we have $150,000 we want to throw at it, which seems like a lot of money, but when you consider they're spending $5.5 million on our main project, that was really just testing money. So I was really interested in taking that project on, and my boss told me he was curious as to why I was so interested in it, because that stuff's for the kids. Why do you want to mess with social media? That was how it was regarded back then. But the one thing that social media does that like traditional broadcasting doesn't is it has a two-way communication, and it goes beyond just the text messaging or the messaging back and forth. It gives you metrics and engagement data, which from a creative point of view, creative has been always a difficult thing to measure because it's more of a sentiment than something that you can actually put an actual number to. However, with social media, you're able to see what the interaction is and how things are coming back and forth. So to me, early on, it was obvious that from a creative point of view, it is a superpower to be able to see what people do with your message, right? You put a video out, I could actually see how long they watched it, if they clicked on it, if they shared it, if they comment. And to me, that was game changer, right? Because with a broadcast TV commercial, a lot of people see it, but you don't know what they were doing. Were they going to the bathroom at the time? Were they making some food? Did that make them go to the website or purchase a product from you? You have no idea. You're just putting it out there, and you have no idea what that messaging is doing. Similarly, with a lot of like physical distribution, mailers, for example, is one of my favorite ones to talk about too. When people ask me about different marketing channels, like direct mail, it's something you got to run in volume. And, they still do it. So obviously it performs, but the downsides to it is you don't have any feedback. What I tell people is like, I would like direct mail if I can know who opened it, what they do after they opened it. Did they check my website? Did they send it to somebody else? Did they show it to somebody in the house? You don't have that kind of insight with those direct mailers, but social does just that. So I took on that project. The fun fact, that is actually when I took on photography, product photography, food photography to be specific, because McDonald's allowed me to shoot the content for social. So I got to build a photo studio for the agency I worked at and took on photography classes and just spent the next couple of years really just fine-tuning that space. As I moved on from that point forward, just in 2 years, it became much more apparent just how much that space was growing. So from then on, it sort of made a pivot because it just so happened that as social media started growing, broadcast started dying, right? Like most of us now watch TV on what they call connected TV, which means is television connected to the internet. So we don't really have as much cable, especially people in my demographic and younger, millennials and Gen Zs. We're watching TV over the internet, piped directly to our televisions, but it's through those smart TVs, which is now, it used to be a new thing. Now it's just how TVs perform. So, social media then became this brand new space. And I started taking on more projects for different clients and just fine-tuning that production process. Because the thing about social media is you do the creative production just like you do with a TV commercial, but it is much more shortcutted. It's faster distribution, faster production. Budgets are typically smaller because you are producing larger amounts of content. So you cannot afford to spend $250,000 per a 30-second spot, which is how much it was back in 2014, I think, they were going for around $250,000 for a 30-second produced TV spot. You can't do that. You can't spend that on social media because you're going to be coming up with a lot more volume. So that was a time for me to learn how to translate creative production and creative strategy to fulfill one long 2-minute story that could be cut into a 30-second story, to produce one creative strategy that can be cut into 20 different videos, 30 different videos. You don't have to work for a month, 2 months, a quarter. That became the streamlined way of creating all these all this content for all these companies, right? And as an agency, you want to be able to fulfill these needs and fulfill all this media buys, but you got to figure out a method to that madness. And as I started getting better at this, the word got out. And it's like, this guy really knows what he's doing. It's like, I just kind of happened to fall into the right space at the right time. But that led to me taking on bigger and bigger projects. And until I got a phone call from the creative director from I'm totally blanking, advertising agency, PMG, that they were dealing with Old Navy, and they had just landed TikTok and needed somebody to come in and direct Old Navy creative social, what they call paid social, right? So anything that you pay to promote a business on social media, they call it paid social, which essentially is advertising on social media and boosting what they call organic content, but it is paid for distribution. And so we came in and my team, I was tasked managing a team that was now split between people that were going to direct TikTok, coming in and directing Old Navy. Now the trick was that the team was going to be reduced because they needed to now pivot and service this other client, but we needed to maintain the same amount of service. So I was really brought in to optimize the process and just get everything running smoothly. If possible, grow the account even more by delivering better products and just take on more of the different social media strategies that Old Navy was running, so we could give them a better service and obviously bring a bigger return. And growing with the space really helped me understand how this space works as far as like storytelling and the mechanics behind it, right? Like the mechanics behind telling a story on social is slightly different, or attention span is shorter. So you need to structure stories in a more like digestible space. And so that was really my focus, was just cleaning up the process, which brings me back again to Legos, right? Like the way I thought about it is like Legos. You have pieces that you put together to assemble one creative story, which is your Lego sculpture, right? But when you shoot content with a strategic focus in mind and a goal to achieve, then you know how to structure that content, and particularly the production, which is the expensive portion of it, to do it in a way that fulfills lots of different outputs. So if you think about a creative story, and if you pay attention when you look at a lot of things that get done online, when you're watching somebody on the phone, it's not going to be like me right now telling you a story directly, right? It's not going to be just this ongoing monologue or dialogue. It's going to be more focused into little clips, right? It gets edited together. You'll see jump cuts. You'll see images. Like it just gets layered together to tell you a story. But you'll notice that you never have a continuous shot from beginning to end, because that is, well, it's called editing, and movies do it, shows do it. It's been around for a very long time. However, in social media, it gets more hyper edited to pack in more information and keep the videos dynamic. Now, the reason behind that, I come to find out, and this came from a study that Meta did, and one of the good things that come with running media for a company as big as Old Navy is you have a phone call, you have Meta's direct line, and you get to talk to a lot of their R&D departments. You get access to a lot of really nice research. When you're spending a high budget with Meta, they give you a lot of resources. You even have a dedicated rep, and they can secure all this different inspiration, all this research, strategy documents. I got a lot of privileged information there because of the account that I was representing. And so one of the ones that really caught my attention was the one that talks about attention spans, right? Everybody got the attention span of a fish on social media, 3 seconds and less, which now we consider that the hook. Turns out what happens is, and it's a whole neurological study, is when you take information from social media, you're compressing your entire field of view into about this space, right? Which is incredible. So all the processing power that your brain has to take in your whole environment gets concentrated into the space of the screen, which makes your processing speed increase tremendously. So you're essentially supercharged. You absorb information at an increased rate. So time is literally slowing down. When you're on your phone, time moves slower. So when you talk about the first 3 seconds are key, And the first zero 0.8 seconds, you are really moving at hyperspeed. It's like you're the Flash or Superman, and you can look around and everybody's moving in slow motion. So a video that you think is too fast in a normal setting, when you're in social media, feels just right. So that's why you get all those fast cuts, those jump edits. The content gets fed to you in a more hyperized way because we are working at a faster speed. Our brains are literally on, hyper mode. So when you're assembling stories, capture them in Lego style is actually genius because you can plan into your story and have different things that make the different Lego bricks. So if you have an insurance business, for example, there's multiple components that make up insurance. And there's really interesting lead-ins to insurance products, right? Insurance could seem like something boring, but when you really look under the hood, there's some fascinating case studies to begin with, right? Some very incredible situations that are actually not that uncommon when you start looking at it. All these little snippets are Lego bricks. All these Lego bricks get put together to assemble a story. But if you do it correctly, you can disassemble those bricks and then assemble a different story. You can have different themes to go into. So if we're going back to the insurance topic, well, you have your homeowner's policy, you have your auto, you can also have an umbrella. So you can go into each one of those individually, but then you want to present a holistic plan of a really well put together insurance plan. Well, you put those Legos that way. Now you want to talk about the particulars of one specific way. Well, you can use those pieces to just go more in depth to it. So that is what I did at Old Navy, and I structured it especially focusing on the products and aspects of them. So to tell you exactly which ones I used, with Old Navy, I started breaking up the products into their different categories and what's special about them. Old Navy has something for everybody, just about. So telling a story about them can be a little challenging because there's too much to talk about. So we found the main pillars that they like to talk about the products, what differentiates them. One of the things is they have typically anything they run, like think about shorts or hoodies, they make every color under the rainbow. They have a lot of breadth. So that is a Lego piece that we talk about, the abundance of options with it. Another one is styles. They have an abundance of styles, right? They go from athletic wear to fast fashion to loungewear, pajamas. There's all the different aspects that they use. Another one is fit. They are really big into making, owning the fast fashion space. So giving you affordable clothing that fits you well. So you could be stylish, but not break the bank in the process. So their fit is very important. Another one is inclusivity, right? They're big in representation for all shapes, sizes, colors, genders, preferences, you name it. So that is another pillar that is important to them. So we'll make sure to capture inclusive models so we can represent everybody. So everybody can see themselves in at least some of this stuff, right? You can't have a bunch of people in every single shot, but if you do a good job about being very purposeful in your representation, then you can do honor to everybody. Another one was technology. Their athletic apparel particularly has technology included, from like the durability or the stretchiness. So you get an idea. We go into the stories and then we come up with what's the theme, right? What's the theme of the season? What kind of story we're going to talk about? And then start shooting into those spaces. So it gives us the flexibility to put things in and out. To give an example of a really cool time that this approach saved Christmas, is we're going to promote a really nice coat called the inauguration coat, I believe. And it was a long like pea coat. It felt incredible. I felt the samples. Good looking coat. And I want to say it was $90 and it looked like a $300 coat. So it was a good deal. Then we're going to go really deep into it. So it was all about this winter wonderland concept for the Christmas advertising we're going to do. We booked a studio in Hollywood. We filled it up with snow in the middle of July. It was literally Christmas in July. They had it snowing, and there's bad snow and good snow. The bad snow is just kind of makes its way. The real snow actually falls, and looks fluffy. Like they had the good kind of snow in there. I mean, we're like in between shots, we're making snow angels on the floor. It was really cool. They hired all these actors to come in. We hired dogs that could move their ears. It was adorable. So we had this whole thing going, and it all revolved around this coat. So we shot photo, we shot video, but we made sure we shot into the Lego block stories, and we make sure to capture all the breadth of products in similar ways. So when it comes down to go to launch, and we're like 2 weeks away from launching, we get the news that this coat is not going to arrive in time. Actually, as a matter of fact, it's not going to be made at all because of supply chain. So the coat that has invested millions of dollars in creating all this advertising story for is suddenly not available. Traditionally, when this happens, everybody goes into a panic. You have to schedule an emergency shoot, which costs you an arm and a leg because you got to create that entire infrastructure again in record time, have product shipped, models flown out. Everything needs to happen overnight and shot, produced, edited, and get set to go live. It's near impossible task. However, because we broke everything into a strategic story block approach, creating our Legos, we're able to just take out the part that was the inauguration coat and replace it with another coat that talked about, style. That was the big part. It was style. So we leaned into style, but we went to the next closest, which in this case was a shacket. I didn't even know what a shacket was. Turns out a jacket that is actually a coat, but it looks like a jacket. And it had those. So we just replaced the beautiful coat shots with the shacket. Obviously, they weren't as nice, and it didn't get as much camera time, but it did get enough for us to be able to replace it with videos of, I was wearing the jackets, putting it on, shots where that was involved, talking about the style, the fit, the variety of it. And we were able to go live with no delay. Now, that's an extreme example working with somebody that is, a large company. But how do you do this as a small business? You plan your content in a way that can be reusable for multiple purposes. So you never go to what I like to call single-use creative. Single-use creative is just as toxic to a business as single-use plastic is to the planet. It uses all your resources, and it does not recycle. So you cannot use it in other outlets, other channels. So what you want to do is when you're going to schedule a production, you're going to spend some good money. Make sure that it's going to work across the board. First of all, make sure that if you're going to have a YouTube channel and a Instagram, we'll also have a Facebook because they're almost interchangeable, but you're going to be shooting portrait and landscape. So a great thing to do is make sure you're shooting with a camera that captures 4K so you can get this, right, horizontal shot. But then, if you're shooting at a 4K, means you can get a 1080p shot that captures this, and there's no loss of quality. So that alone is one way that you can just make sure you're getting two different outlets out of the same shoot. Then another big thing that you can do, especially if you're a business owner recording and talking about your product or service, is learn to speak in clips, in Lego blocks, right? So when you talk about services or things you have to say, make sure to keep them into snippets. Don't just run on talking over and over. Speak in a sentence and two, pause, complete your thought, get the next one, complete your thought and pause. That makes it so you can clip those videos out, and then you can use them and edit them together. You can edit it together into nice flowing video, or you can take parts of that and combine it with other things. You could talk about your service and create that clip, and then you can go on to talking about or actually showing a video that you took on your phone of that service, right? And you can go back to your studio shot where you're talking, and you can go back and forth. It gives you much more flexibility. Then also what you have, if you're going to a bigger production, you're like really investing to up your content game, because now you're stepping into what is called content marketing. Then you also want to make sure that you're capturing photos of the event. You also want to make sure that you're capturing behind the scenes of you doing that whole production with your phone, because people like to see that. People like to see what happens behind the camera. That is gold for your stories, right? Photography will go on. You're on set. You're probably wearing makeup. You have people running around, making sure everything looks great. Have photography on site. Even bonus, if you can hire somebody that knows how to work both. get those photos taken because they're going to help you for your social media accounts. You need banners, large banners for YouTube. You need them also for LinkedIn. All right. You're going to need it for your website, some headers for your sites, blog headers for blog posts, articles that you create. This is content that you need to capture. You can also use those pictures for social media and doing some of your carousel posts. That's how you go about being smart about production and creating all of it. It's something that really helped me stand out in the corporate world, and got to make a pretty good name for myself doing that kind of strategy, and led me into rooms and audiences that I didn't really think I'd be doing had I not learned how to do this efficiently. But then it's got a very, very tangible return in what you get out of these productions. So another thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about is social media and its space in the marketing world. One of the things that I think everybody should realize, and I think everybody is, but we are in changing times. Some things are changing drastically, and it's going to get faster. Social media is very important because it is one of the easiest ways you can communicate with your clients. It gives you some of the most robust tools to target your clients. And you are in control of so many variables in there that it's crazy not to take advantage of it. One of the biggest changes that we're experiencing right now is the shifting of large corporations and people's affinity to them, and the resurgence of the small business economy. And that is because largely social media. To give you an example of why this is so important, when I was working at Old Navy, one of the biggest threats to the profitability of the company that we would sit down, and it was conversations with C-suite level executives, VPs, agencies, strategists would come here and talk about what we're going to do about all of these influencers and brands that are popping up on social media that generate an incredibly loyal following. Now, each one of these businesses alone doesn't take enough of the market share to threaten a big corporation like Old Navy. But the problem is there's so many of them now that collectively they are taking a larger market share that was previously owned by all these big companies. So they are feeling the pressure that all these smaller companies are placing in them, because social media has now gave them a distribution channel that everybody can tap into right away. And now quality content is what's grabbing that attention. So all these large companies, whereas before they could just spend money, they could outspend you to get your message out, because you can't afford to place ads in all these outlets. You can't put ads on TV. You can't run really expensive advertising campaigns that show up on New York and in all these crazy metros, do all this crazy activations that get everybody talking. That's big budget stuff. But now quality content produced by smaller companies that give value to their audience are performing and getting that attention, which these companies are really starting to sweat it, because now they're not owning it anymore. Nike is freaking out. They've been the cool people. They've been the cool kid around the block forever. And now they're not getting the numbers. They're not getting the engagement. They're not getting the attention. News institutions are freaking out. Did you know what the average view score of a CNN broadcast is? 75,000 people. That's how many people watch a CNN broadcast. There's videos that have more views than that, right? So it is shifting completely. To give you a good analogy, is I want you to think about David and Goliath, right? It's an easy thing to think about. Think of the small business owner, obviously, as being David. Think about Goliath being this giant corporation, right? Goliath has this giant sword, which is this giant statue. They have agencies, which are basically their swords, and their stature, which is their budgets. All right, they have a tremendous purchasing power, and they can purchase media, create really expensive productions, and put it out there for everybody to see. And now here comes small business owner David, who is facing this giant. And David, all he's got is a sling, right? Well, Malcolm Gladwell very famously did a study of this. And there appears to be a historical figure named David and a historical figure named Goliath. And the place where this battle took place, it's an actual place on the planet. So they studied the ground there and realized that those little pebbles that may put in a sling are very heavy in iron. So these rocks are more like bullets. They are very dense and heavy. And then a skilled slingshotter could shoot a bird out of mid-flight. Right? They're very accurate with this. So then they started looking at what is the stopping power of a sling? It turns out that I believe 25 feet or 35 feet, don't quote me on this, a slingshot powered by a well-trained slinger has the stopping power of a magnum, a handgun, right? So here comes Goliath with his giant size and his giant sword, but he showed up to a gunfight. He never stood a chance. David took him down from the get-go. That was not a fair fight. But if you think about it, social media is that sling. You now have the equivalent of a magnum gun that can take down any corporation you like. And all you have to do is know how to use it. You got to train to know how to use the sling. How do you learn how to use the sling? Your social media sling. Simple. Leverage your abilities, right? And what you have. What is the easiest thing that you have that a corporation does not? A face. You're a business owner. You have a face. People deal with you. Your face is your differentiator. A corporation does not have a face. They have executives, CEOs, CFOs, CMOs, shareholders, which is everybody and nobody, right? They don't have anything that you can actually relate to and create a relationship with. You have that. And in social media, you can do that, right? I'm talking to you and you're connecting with me. Target cannot do this. Target cannot come in here and like, hey, I'm Target. I'm going to talk to you. Like, who the hell is Target? That's why they pay celebrities crazy amount of money to go endorse them, because they're hoping that you'll start attaching them to the celebrity face you like so much so you can start developing an emotional connection with them. But that is a very shallow connection and is broken really quickly. And they just need to do something wrong, which Target does it all the time and people hate them for it. McDonald's, every time they make a mistake, McDonald's is the most favorite brand to hate, right? And they know it. So leverage your own, what they call personal branding, your persona. You're part of this business and you're an important part of it. So you can leverage that. The second one is value, right? People are tired of getting sold at because there is ads everywhere. I mean, try to watch YouTube, you get bombarded with ads. Try to watch something, listen to anything. I mean, there's ad sponsored things. You get ads. I mean, even when you Google something, the first 3 things you get is an ad. So we don't like being sold to. We're tired of it. But we like being entertained. Excuse me. We like being entertained. We like being informed. We like being taken care of, right? And that is something you can absolutely do with content. Think about it this right now. Like what I'm doing right now is giving you an insight into the social media space, trying to give you what I think is valuable information that can help you and your business create more loyal customers, create that brand loyalty. And it's what is at the backbone of this new way of doing it. That is your sling. Is creating quality content that entertains and informs, empowers, inspires. You want to give to people because that ties back to your business, and they ultimately want to do business with the people that help them, the people that support their community, the people that do things for them. They want that reciprocity. When have you felt reciprocity for a big box corporation? You don't, right? It's not the same thing. So crafting stories, videos, content, right? Carousel posts, reels, stories, regular old-fashioned posts, all this stuff. If you make sure that it's always something that you would watch, is something that you would want to watch, that is really what is at the core of it all. When you create stories that give value, then you are going to receive that value in return. Now, the way you do this with a strategy is you want to tie all of this to the services you offer. And the way you think about it, and the simplest way to think about it, is you give away the information for free. Because honestly, we have ChatGPT, we have Google, we have YouTube University. You can find the knowledge, right? But you are curating it, right? That's your value. You're curating this in a way that is digestible to a certain type of person. That's who you're talking to. You curate that and you give that value. That way you can connect with them. You're giving the information for free. And then what you sell is the implementation. Now, if you want help with this, for example, if you need to do everything that I'm talking about with social media, but you are an owner operator and you are wearing already 20 different hats, and now you're going to become a content marketing expert, that might be a little much. So I want to help you understand what it entails. So when somebody comes around, offer you a service, you can call bullshit, right? That is one of the biggest things. Like, if I gave you the right information, you're going to be able to make an informed decision. So hopefully you'll stay away from people that are just selling you snake oil, making you empty promises and they're not going to deliver, right? They're going to want to talk you into, you need a viral video because that's what's going to make money. I make viral videos. You need a viral video. Do you? Does a viral video guaranteed return on investment? Does it gain you new customers? It depends, right? Is it related to your business, or you just put a cat video? I mean, I can put a funny cat video, get a ton of views. Are you going to buy social media strategy from me because of a cat video? No. How can I actually create content that is interesting, that speaks about your business, right? That is what's important. Now, I can help you with it. And if you find that the value that I'm giving to you is worthwhile, and you want me to help you set the strategy so you can start connecting with those people, generate that relationship, and start building lifelong loyal customers, I can do that, or I can tell you how to do it, right? But either way, I want you to make the smart decision and not go for somebody that is just trying to sell you what they call the vanity metrics. So to summarize that, strategy for social media is you give away the information, you sell the implementation, right? So that way you can be the person that takes care of them if they want to. But the beauty of it is when you're sharing content that is rooted in value, they already resonate with the content you're providing. They already understand the way you're going to approach things and they're familiar with it. So it is a much better fit. It's not just an inbound person that you picked up. Let's say you're doing SEO and they found your business. They're coming in cold, right? So you're going to spend a lot of time qualifying these leads that you're paying for because they don't know you as well. Google Ads, keywords don't communicate brand, don't communicate personality, don't communicate methodology, right? Social media does. They're going to understand how you approach things, the things you believe, what you think is important, what you don't, right? People that are familiar with my message and are familiar with the content I put out know that I don't think SEO is the main thing you should focus on, especially if you're just starting out. And triple especially if you're in a highly competitive industry that has bigger budget players, because you'll never be able to compete with them. And they spend a lot more money in SEO. They spend a lot of money on pay-per-click. They're going to outspend you. However, on a social space, I believe you have a much more level playing ground because the quality of your message matters. Two businesses can target the same audience, have the same exact budget. Who's going to win? The person with a better message, the person with a better creative, the person with a better strategy. And those are the things you start looking at. That is what makes the difference. That's what a smart social media strategy does, right? Posting for the sake of posting, chasing viral videos for the sake of chasing viral videos. That is not a strategy. That is just throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something sticks. And you'll hit 1 or 2 home runs, but you're not going to get a good batting average, and you're not going to get into the home run records that the great ones do, right? And the great ones, a lot of the great ones now are just small businesses that know how to leverage social media in an advantageous way. Another thing that is probably shocking, but your follower count's actually a vanity metric as well. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to say like not having followers doesn't matter, but the way algorithms function now, this is thanks to TikTok. And honestly, every single small business owner should be thanking TikTok for this. TikTok changed the way the algorithm works because it now it does something what is called interest-based metrics. Whereas before it was relationship-based. When it was relationship-based, you saw content related to the people you follow, the people your friends followed, and that's how your feed got built, is giving you those kind of that kind of content. Now, because of TikTok and TikTok showing how honestly addictive it is to see things that are related to your interest, they have now moved to interest-based, and now Meta, both Instagram and Facebook do it. YouTube does it now. By the way, YouTube megastars are freaking out because now their million-plus follower accounts don't have the same distribution power that they used to because of their numbers. Because now their followers are not seeing their content, they're seeing the content that is interesting to them. So it is a time where being interested is a lot more powerful than being popular. A really popular channel with millions of followers has distribution, but a really interesting video that has good retention rates, people that watch the whole thing because it's interesting, will be shown to a lot more people than a million-plus subscription or viewer social media channel will have. That is so important for business owners to understand, because making interesting content will help you stand out, right? Stagger that with a paid strategy to boost your distribution of an already well-performing video, and you will be shocked how many people you reach. So if I can give you one parting piece of advice from a social media strategist, somebody that's been in the trenches and has grown with the space from its inception, is storytelling and value in your story is the most powerful scale moving towards the future of our marketing. Content marketing will be one of the biggest forms, and honestly, one of the biggest budgets for marketing going in the future, because this is how we share information. This is what word of mouth is. This is what networking is when it takes a digital form. So mastering these channels, mastering storytelling, mastering value-driven messaging will give you the advantage that you need to make the biggest difference, because nobody can tell your message as good as you can. Nobody knows why you are the best choice besides you. You know that the best. And if you can communicate that in video, you will know that everybody that your videos reach have access to an extension of you. And that in turn will make you top of mind, and will keep you in everybody's minds and thoughts because you're there, right? Just like I'm talking to you. We're having a conversation. I wish I could see you. I can't. But I'm going to be having this conversation with you. And you know what? You might be watching this right now live. You could be watching this in February, right? But I'm still having this conversation with you. I'm going to be giving you this message for perpetuity, right? Video, in a sense, makes you timeless. You know, in a sense, it is legacy, right? So don't put it off. Get on camera, record videos, get out there. It's terrifying. It's weird. I'm talking to myself right now. Nobody else, right? It's just me talking to you. But I'm hoping I can get across to you because of the power of video, and social can do that. So please, if you can gather anything out of this conversation, is tell good stories, tell them yourself, tell them on video, and share them with everybody. Thanks, everyone. This was the Mansfield Buzz Solo Edition. I'm your host, Jordan Hough. Heard he couldn't be here today because, you know, he got the flu. He's actually human, believe it or not. But hey, you're welcome, Herdy. Thank you for feeling today. And, you know, I think he was watching, hopefully in his pajamas. I do my best to give value. And to Liberty tax offenders, who should be your go-to for all your tax strategy and any kind of problem you have, happy to fill in, happy to give you guys a shout out. You guys do a phenomenal job. Speaking of content strategy and just value-driven content, you go to their Facebook channel and just look at the stuff they have to share. It is both informative and hilarious, so can't go wrong there. I mean, they totally own that space of value-driven messaging. So every Thursday, rain, shine, flu, or Otherwise, we will be here covering this Mansfield and surrounding area. We'll tell you what's the buzz in businesses all around. I'm your host, Jordan Hough. Happy to be here with you all. Bye.